Welcome to our 5 on 5. I'm pleased to be joined today by Senator Ron Wyden in Portland. Senator, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me back.
So as you know, we scheduled this interview earlier in the week to discuss your two town halls next week here in Southern Oregon. So we're going to start there and table any conversation about any former presidents. You've held more than 10,000 town halls in office. Why is that so important to you?
To me, this was part of a pledge that I made, and nobody had ever done anything like this, to commit to have an open to all town hall meeting in every county every year. You know, Washington, D.C. is a long way from Southern Oregon. And for a lot of folks in Southern Oregon, Washington, D.C. might as well be Mars for all the practical connection it has to them. So what I like to do is just make sure that folks in the community know that I will be there to listen to them and follow up. And, you know, people don't always agree. Everybody understands that. Often you don't agree with your spouse on some particular matter, but it's really a question of respect and making sure that you don't just go back there and pretend that you know what's going on. You actually get out and listen to folks, and that's what I'll be doing.
In case anyone doesn't know, it's next Thursday the 6th that you'll be at the Sutherland High School gym at 1 p.m. The next day, Friday the 7th, you'll be at Phoenix High School's Rose Street Theater at 1 p.m. What kind of feedback do you get from Southern Oregon residents that you may not get in other parts of Oregon?
The issues tend to always involve the second word of being bill. There's so much economic hurt out there, and people will say medical bill, housing bill, energy bill. And I'm sure those issues are going to come up. We're going to hear a lot. I know about what's being done to, deal with fire, what's being done to deal with prescription drugs. I suspect people will ask some questions about the Finance Committee investigation that yielded an incredible example of massive federal tax evasion. And, rural Oregonians, pay their taxes, and they don't like getting fleeced by bankers and others from around the world.
So again, we're lucky enough to have you today with so much going on nationally, certainly with our politics. Former President Trump, of course, has been indicted on about 30 counts. The exact charges are still under seal. In your position, I'm sure you're privy to a lot of information that us normal people can't access. What can you tell us about this situation?
Well, the way I would describe it is certainly very unfortunate that the facts of this case have for the first time led to the indictment of a former president. And the adherence to the rule of law is what makes America exceptional. And that is something that has to apply to everybody.
The Manhattan DA filing these charges is a Democrat. A significant portion of Oregonians, your constituents, are worried that the former president is being targeted over politics. What do you have to say to them?
The way I would describe it, my views, and you just heard them, is this is all about the rule of law. This is about a fundamental, proposition that the rule of law applies to everybody in the country. And I have great faith in the rule of law, and that applies to everyone. And you won't hear me in the discussion of this matter talking about Democrats and Republicans. We'll talk about, as I just described, that American exceptionalism. And a key aspect of that is adhering to the rule of law.
We're going to take a quick break. We have much more to talk about your work in Washington when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Senator Ron Wyden. Senator, I want to correct myself real quick. I said I believe you had 10,000 town halls in part 1 of our 5 on 5. That's 1,000. I apologize.
Correct.
This month, you introduced a bill to increase access to mental and behavioral health care for kids, seniors, and low-income Americans. Why was that necessary? Is that not being done properly?
Unfortunately, our country and rural Oregon had a serious mental health situation before the pandemic, and it's only gotten worse. And in particular, I've been concerned that a law that was passed some years ago described that we would have parity for mental health. Physical health and mental health would be treated the same. That hasn't been the case. And this legislation basically, once again, builds on what the country thought had already taken place, which was that we had parity, and we would expand it, particularly to some of those vulnerable folks in Southern Oregon that you described in our bill.
This month, you cheered the decision allowing lower drug costs for seniors due to an inflation rebate. Was there price gouging going on there?
There sure was, and I wrote that law, and it was a fundamental part of a bipartisan effort earlier with Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa. You know, so many of these older drugs, they're not changing, but the price just keeps going up and up and up. Insulin was a perfect example. So as part of an earlier bill, I wrote the first anti-price gouging legislation. It said that if medicine goes up more than the rate of inflation, the drug companies would pay a penalty that the money could be used to lower co-insurance, and that has just gone into effect, and something like 27 drugs are now having lower co-payments because of the anti-price gouging law that I wrote.
Senator, thank you for taking the time. We do appreciate it.
Let's do it again soon, Craig.
All right, we will. We'll be right back.